Our Springfield tour begins with Springfield's first Sandy's Drive-In, later referred to as Sandy's West, at 600 West Jefferson. This location was number 67 in the Sandy's chain, and it was opened on December 14, 1963, after 95 days of construction. Clearly, today's Hardee's occupies this spot. In 1973, when the Hardee's buyout occurred, this location, along with 90% of the 267 Sandy's locations, converted from the Sandy's brand to Hardee's. Hardee's started in Greenville, North Carolina in 1960, and when they purchased Sandy's in 1972, the two brands were supposed to remain separate. But most franchisees were convinced by Sandy's executives that switching to the new brand would be best. All 5 Springfield locations aligned with this thinking, and in 1973, all 5 made the conversion. It is interesting to note that the 3 nearby Decatur locations all held out and never made the switch to Hardee's, but instead held out until 1977, when Hardee's mandated a decision: either switch to Hardee's or create a separate brand. And so all 3 Decatur Sandy's became Buc-ee's Drive-In. You can find out more about the history of Sandy's in the video, What Happened to Sandy's Drive-In. I've put the link in the description and at the end of this video, so if you haven't seen that yet, you'll want to be sure to check that out. This location was built a little to the east of where this Hardee's building now stands. Often, when the Sandy's buildings were converted to Hardee's, they made some small changes to the signage and the buildings for branding purposes. Then, when it was feasible, the building was torn down and a new building was constructed. When it made sense, the original structure kept the business going and a new building was built right next to it. And that's exactly what happened in this case, except it happened several years later. Just to the east of the building you see here stood the original Sandy's. According to the original owner, Bob Faith, it was modified many times to get it to seat more people, up to 89. Finally, in August 1991, the building you see here was built in an unbelievable 38 days, allowing seating for 181 patrons. If you have any early pictures of this location, please share. Moving on to Sandy's number 2 for Springfield, Illinois, we arrive at Sandy's East at the corner of what was 18th and South Grand. 18th Street is now called Martin Luther King Jr. Drive. This location was number 118 in the Sandy's chain, and it was opened November 3rd, 1966. I remember this location as a Hardee's in the late 80s and early 90s. As you can see, it doesn't resemble the original building in any way, and it would be easy to assume that the original building was torn down and replaced with a newer Hardee's building. But take a look at this building and notice how square it is. The newer Hardee's buildings are rectangle to accommodate over 150 patrons, but this one is square. And if you take a look at the bird's eye view, you can make out something very unusual with the roof line. See how the roof jets out in 3 directions? What's that mean? Well, it means that this is an original Sandy's building. It's been squared off and the wooden beams cut down, but there is no doubt that this is a Sandy's roof line. Apparently, it just didn't make sense to demolish this building and rebuild as Hardee's did with the West location. Unfortunately, even though there is an original Sandy's frame hiding beneath that Hardee's facade, you'd never know it today. Today, this location is used as a Catholic Charities outreach center where volunteers help the underprivileged and the poor of the community. Now we arrive at Sandy's number 3 in Springfield, location number 120 at 1135 North 9th Street. This location, Sandy's North, opened December 15th, 1966, just weeks after Sandy's East on South Grand, and 3 years after the first location on Jefferson. It was converted to a Hardee's during the buyout in 1973. The look didn't change much until a remodel around 1975 allowed for expanded seating for up to 120. The original building was demolished in early December 1989, and a new rectangular building was erected and opened in its place in January 1990 that would seat 150. Here is a photo of that location a few years ago, just before it was demolished to make way for the current building we see in the video. Now here is Springfield's fourth Sandy's Drive-In at 2100 South MacArthur Boulevard, Sandy South. This location was Unit 146 in the chain and opened in December 1968. It is at this point in our Springfield tour that we have uncovered a hidden treasure. If you look at this building as you drive by, it really looks like any other title loan company. But take a close look through that tinted glass. You see the wooden beams? This, my friends, is an original Sandy's building. Looking through the windows, you can see the huge wooden beams supporting the whole structure. These beams are a trademark of Sandy's architect, Bob Armstrong. These beams symbolize strength and upward movement. Like the South Grand location, a bird's eye view also reveals the roof jetting out in 3 directions. Not much has really changed, although the building has been squared off at the roof line, and an addition has been built off on the south side. Although the building has been squared off, it doesn't take much to imagine a simpler time when teens and hot rods would be gathered on a Saturday night at this local hangout. Now we come to the final Sandy's in our Springfield tour, Sandy's Downtown, the 5th Sandy's Drive-In for Springfield. Located at 217 South 5th Street, this was 147 in the chain and was built out at the same time as Sandy South on MacArthur. Although it opened at the same time, and the location number reflects 147 versus MacArthur's 146, the downtown location held its grand opening on December 20th, 1967, a full 6 weeks ahead of the MacArthur location. You can see right away this was no ordinary Sandy's. This one was built into a storefront, which was not very common for the chain. I haven't calculated how many were done this way, but I suspect that out of the 267, there were just a handful. And this may have been the first one built out like this. I don't have any photos of what this would have looked like, but I imagine the Sandy sign that was on the front of most buildings was probably hung about here. If you have any memories of this location, I sure would like to hear your story, so be sure to leave a comment, and if you can dig up one, a photo would be worth 1,000 words. So that wraps up our tour of the 5 Sandy's Drive-In restaurants in Springfield, Illinois. I'm so glad you could join me on this trip down memory lane. I hope you were flooded with memories of good experiences of days gone by. If you have any special memories of these locations, again, leave some comments below. I'm sure we would all love to hear your stories, and if you can, dig up any photos. We would all appreciate that as well. Now, if you haven't done it yet, don't forget to click the bell icon below to subscribe and become a member of Restaurant Rewind. That way you won't miss anything. To find out more information on the Sandy's Drive-In chain, don't forget to check out my other video, What Happened to Sandy's Drive-In. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on Restaurant Rewind.